Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George, joined once more by Ayman for another spoiler discussion. And we are here again talking all things Cobra Kai Season 5 spoiler discussion. Just as your first warning, we're going to talk spoilers about the new season, which was released this Friday. But first of all, before we get into any of that kind of stuff, how are we doing tonight, Ayman?
Yeah, we're not too bad, thanks. Can't complain. Just got finished watching Cobra Kai.
Excellent. And I say I do appreciate it. We were going to have Tate with us, but we've got a lot of stuff happening on the channel behind the scenes. We've got a lot of prep going underway for London Film Festival, so we've not been able to make it work at the moment, but we've got a load of other stuff me and Tate are working on recording behind the scenes. So that's why there's just two of us tonight, I want to say. And as alongside everything else, everybody, please do comment your thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 5. As we said, this is a spoiler discussion. You can comment whatever you want, your thoughts on the season, your issues, the stuff you've enjoyed, the stuff you haven't. If you're watching it later, maybe you've not watched all 10 episodes yet. It's a pretty big feat to have watched them in the last 3 days, especially if everyone else's newsfeed's being taken up by other stuff, such as D23 and loads of other things. Do get involved, and we want to hear your thoughts on them. So we do appreciate it. And if you are a fan, we've got a couple of other Cobra Kai videos on the channel. We've got a playlist that's on our homepage. We've got a lot of other TV coming up. We're in a crazy period for TV. So maybe do consider hitting the subscribe button if you're curious about what else we're going to be covering. We've got House of Dragon. We've got the Rings of Power. We've got Andor stuff, which will be weekly discussions for us on Andor, and a few other things. As I said, Festival, Spielberg. There's so much stuff happening. And the best way to find out about our reviews, videos we're planning, things in the pipeline, is to follow us on social medias. That is Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and we have a link to Redbubble in the description below where you can pick up some of our merch. Not wearing any of it today, but there are hats, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff. If you do want to help support the channel, it does mean a lot. But before we get into the story per se, I'm going to ask you, I'm not putting on the spot too much, Ayman, but obviously, this is the first time we've got you on for a Cobra Kai video. I just want to know your sort of initial thoughts on the series, the Karate Kid films, and also what you thought of this upon first viewing.
Yeah, I thought Season 5 was really good. It started off a little bit, not slow, but different. But then once it finished a few storylines and sort of started bringing everything together, worked really well. Yeah, Cobra. So the Karate Kid films have always been something that I've watched. Like even if they're on TV, I'll watch them in the background. I have watched all three and the next Karate Kid as well, which the Hilary Swank one, which is really good as well. I really enjoy those. But yeah, that's my history with like Karate Kid and Cobra Kai.
It's interesting. So obviously I've known you many years. And before I even got into Cobra Kai, you and obviously Cinder's been on the channel before. We're all like trying to get me into it. It took me a little bit longer than everyone thought. But what makes it interesting, I genuinely believe this is one of the most popular shows out there at the moment. There's a lot of stuff happening. The Karate Kid's a classic. I think that generation that grew up with it in the 80s is certainly watching. And I think it's sort of passed down the generation. And certainly the jump to Netflix was massive for it. And I think, I definitely similar. Were you watching it when it was back on YouTube Red? I feel like you two knew about this way before it was even big.
I knew it was a thing, but I didn't watch it on YouTube Red. I know the Sim did, but when Season 2 came out on Netflix, I managed to watch both seasons in like a weekend or something because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it is very bingeable. I mean, I watched Season 4 with you both on a day. Obviously, we couldn't make it work this year. A lot of things happening. But the way we're going to do this for anyone watching at home, obviously, this is a spoiler discussion. We've got the key storylines. I mean, Tate did a spoiler-free review at the start of the week when the embargo lifted. We spoke about the three key storylines, some characters, some performances, and what we're kind of going to do, we're kind of going to go into it via that way. So we've got the Cobra Kai main storyline, which is obviously Terry Silver being in control, and how is Miyagi-Do going to come back to try and take control of the valley. We've also got Mexico with the Miguel storyline. We've got the stuff with Kreese. Obviously, a lot of these merge. Some might set for Season 6, some might not, but we're going to go into it story by story. We'll go through things we like, things we don't like, character arcs, character performances. And I think it's only fair. We're going to start with Cobra Kai. How Season 4 ended, was Kreese ending up in jail. Terry Silver has took full control and he's won the tournament. I've just got to say, I don't even know this. I didn't even see the official trailer for the series, but the best thing of this series, hands down, is Terry Silver for me, if I'm being honest right now. certainly for the first time I felt the budget in this series. Like they've got not just a new studio, but obviously with the money that Terry Silver has, Cobra Kai has got like state of the art facilities, very Drago Rocky 4, and we get this really incredible storyline with him. And he's working on something big behind the scenes, which is something I didn't expect to ever hear about in Cobra Kai. But just as a whole, how do you feel with Terry Silver, with that story arc and everything that goes down?
I thought it was really good. Terry Silver as a character, I mean, the actor plays it really well because he's so like you'd believe in real life he is that sneaky, and like the way he's so brutal about stuff. Like I know we'll go into it later about other characters, but there's times where I think, is he gonna do something there? Like, but yeah, him being that sneaky and sort of influential, because if you think about it, these are kids that he's talking to, and especially Payne, the impact that he has on him as a character, you can just see him like getting more and more sort of violent, which plays really well into like how Terry Silver is as a character.
Yeah, and I think with Terry Silver, where we kind of, I mean, what you were saying with the films earlier, background with them, Karate Kid 3 was kind of one that I was surprised, because I was late to these. I actually saw them for the first time just before I saw Cobra Kai seasons 1 to 3 for the first time. And I was really surprised that 2 and 3 had this sort of, I don't want to say that, I don't know what franchise sort of compares to it. There, you've got this one like instant classic film, and everything that comes afterwards is deemed crap. Now, I don't think they are. But there was this really negative vibe of Karate Kids 2, 3. Obviously, I understand the next Karate Kid, and I certainly understand the Jaden Smith one, mainly because it's Kung Fu. And what sort of took me back is that the one thing this series does, and we've spoken this before, is that when they put the flashbacks in, and this is just this isn't just this storyline, they've brought up so much. What would I use the right term? Like, not just referencing the other films, but they're giving you character arcs. You're having actors come back 20, 30 years later. We're getting new storylines. And what they enable us to do is we're able to look at them in a completely brand new line. That, I think in this one, the Terry Silver one, the thing that made me laugh, obviously I didn't spoil anything to you, but it was when like there's a throwing line in Karate Kid 3, like, I learned from this person. And what do we get in this series? We get an entire backstory to this person that was just a name drop in a line in a meeting with him and Daniel. And it's things like that Cobra Kai handles so well. It's how they do the flashbacks. It's not just like, this is for people that haven't seen it. They're very delicate, and the way they edit them is like a really genuine, like decent montage. And I think with Terry Silver, we needed some of that stuff, because we know he's a villain, we know he's a cartoon, and we know he's got something big in the pipeline. But to show us that over a 10-episode series, and I guess we can say, this is spoilers. We'll do the first major one. All of this is building up for like the global karate tournament. Apologies, I've forgotten the name of it. But when they sort of announced it, I kind of laughed, because we're so focused on the All Valley, which is great, and that's a massive part of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. But taking it global is the next big step. And some maybe might not like this. I hope they do, but it makes logical sense to bring in this international thing. And there would be like international karate tournaments. I don't know if it's a real tournament. It's probably not. But how do you feel with his ultimate plan, just being the best karate? I mean, it's a simple venom plan, right? I just want to be the best karate company in the world. I mean, like the Disney of karate.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like, I mean, you can only do the All Valley tournament so much before people start thinking, why are they doing another one? Like, you need that step up. And if it's going to go, I mean, the way they did the flashbacks about how Terry Silver had this idea, like way back in the day when John Kreese was the sensei of Cobra Kai, and then them trying to, like, Terry Silver actually taking control and saying, I'm going to do this now. It makes sense, because he has the money, he has the facility, he has the value at that point, like midway through the season. Like, there's no sort of karate dojos apart from Cobra Kai, so you can't. How would you do an All Valley at that point? Would you have different Cobra Kai dojos against each other? That doesn't make sense. So you take it a step up, you do global, and it makes sense. I really, yeah, I can't remember the name of the tournament, but like the storyline they did where they like played up to it and had the sort of heads of karate coming out and sort of having the application process and all that. That was really good. Hopefully they do a season 6 and they actually get that actual going essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it here. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but I believe it's the Seke the Seke Taikai. They probably pronounce
Yeah.
it far better than I do. But as you even kind of mentioned, when you have the other sponsors coming out and we get to see like, are they good enough to be in this tournament?
Mm.
I feel like it's natural progression. That to me, the massive thing with Karate Kid, and this isn't a disrespectful term for it, it's so over the top. You have to go
Mm.
with it. And I don't know if I've said it in the Spoiler Free reviews or if I've said it in the other years, but it is literally to me like wrestling. Like obviously I don't watch it anymore. I probably should, given the recent news and dramas and Triple H coming back. But it's like, I hate the term because I don't want to like disrespect like any potential like female viewers of the series, because there are a lot of fans and you've got a lot of great actors in this as well. But it's, you know, the whole like wrestling is like soap opera for men. That's always been like a tagline to it. To me, like Karate Kid is literally a soap opera at this point, that it doesn't matter how ludicrous they're going to get, how stupid it is, how over the top it is. It's all going to come down to a big karate fight, and it's going to resolve itself. And there's something so stupid yet incredible about it. And I think that's why the show works. That I don't think the show is ever trying to be not smart. I don't think it's trying to be anything more than, this is a karate show. This is where it's going. It's not trying to be, you know, like the Breaking Bad of karate, or to be the most realistic thing. It knows exactly what it is. I think it knows its audience, what people enjoy. It's a very nostalgic series. A lot more 80s music in this series. Some really good songs as well. And it never loses sight of, I think, why it works as a show. And I think because Kreese has been around as the villain for so long now, you needed Terry Silver. And it was great having him in season 4. But because his goal, you know, he only becomes the main villain once he gets rid of Kreese. I think the best positive I can give this series is that I think a year away from Kreese in this main role has really helped, because I don't think you could have got away with having Kreese as the villain for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, Kreese being a villain would have been done to death. I mean, he was a villain in Karate Kid 1, he was a villain, he was a sort of side villain that came in later in Karate Kid 3, and then having him as a villain in, what was it, season 2, 3, and a little bit of 4, his character needs to move on from, not from Cobra Kai, but it was nice to see his own storyline sort of taken to different places and have Terry Silver in the forefront, because the global plan was, well, the overall plan was to go global. John Kreese wasn't on board with that, so Terry Silver taking full control and moving Kreese out of the way makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you in that. And if we stick to a bit more Cobra Kai, let's talk about a few other characters that pop up. So within the Cobra Kai bracket, before we get to the young ones, I think it's fair we start with some of the adult cast. We'll save Johnny till we get to the Mexico stuff. We'll do his story arc with that. But we've obviously got Miyagi-Do. We've got Daniel LaRusso, of course, Ralph Macchio playing him again. But the standout, somebody that rocked up in season 3, Chosen, is amazing in this series. Yuji Okamoto plays him in this. I think it was season 4 when it was season. They're all like a blur to me. Season 4 is when obviously we went to Japan and we had that really touching, you know, the Mr. Miyagi stuff. We get to meet him again. When he popped up at the end of season 4, and it was almost like, I don't know if you've seen the meme trend recently of what I've done, the Transformers stuff.
Oh,
everyone's like, if this film would have finished at 7, Cobra Kai season 4 literally had it like you pan up from the gravestone and it's like Chosen waiting with Daniel. I was really excited to see him in America in this, and I think I'd say he's also one of the highlights that he gets. Although he's not in like every episode constantly throughout, he plays this incredible fish out of water type story that we see in so many TV shows, so many films. You know, he's come to America, he's not familiar with how the country's going to work, but he knows karate. And I just think every scene he's in is sensational. And the one thing I'm going to jump to, not even the ending, is the actual egg scene. that when you've got that incredible teaching moment, and you know, he's in theory a descendant of Miyagi's training, of course, who trained Mr. Miyagi. They're all in sync with each other, and I just think he's amazing in this series. He's got this charisma, he's got this charm, and I think the show needed him. I don't think, kind of similar to Kreese in this villain role, I think if it was just Daniel LaRusso again, like being a really good guy, I don't think it would benefit him. I think we'd be tired of it by now. But the fact we get Chosen, who's like helping, I mean, the way it begins is it's like espionage. Like Chosen's there to pretend to be part of his karate stuff, and you get some really good scenes with Chosen and Terry Silver. How do you feel about, I guess, Chosen in a recurring role, and also we've got the fight at the end of the series, which is probably one of everyone's favorite scenes. How did that arc do it for you?
Oh, he was my favorite character by far. Just every scene that he was in, it was just whatever sort of thing that he was trying to do. If he was trying to be funny, it was a funny scene. If he was trying to be serious, it was a serious moment. And just the amount of like as you said, the teaching moment, he did it in a different way than Daniel LaRusso would, or Johnny Lawrence would. He did it in a sort of way that's like a halfway in between both those styles, where he wasn't too rough on them, but he wasn't too easy on them as well. He was. Yeah, I mean, like when they're out celebrating, and like the security guards like wanding them down, and he's got those size in his pockets. Like, can't bring those in here. Like, it makes sense as to why. Like, he doesn't understand those ways, so he's like, "Oh, why can't I bring them in here?" It's like they're weapons, you can't. But like when they go back to John Barnes's furniture store, and he thinks that Daniel's getting attacked, and he like beats the crap out of like John Barnes, and then he's like, "Oh, you might want to not go outside," and he's beat up all the other workers that John Barnes has working for them. It's like, yeah, he doesn't know the ways. He's not overprotective, but he takes his role of being a protector of Daniel LaRusso and the family really seriously, and that really works.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big thing for this as well, that again we're able to set up new stuff. And this is what's kind of crazy when you really drill it down. Again, I wasn't around in the YouTube Red days, but season 1 is the story of two enemies from 30-40 years ago coming back together per se with switch roles. And with 5 seasons in, we've now got like villain from Karate Kid 2, now a fully fledged hero fighting villain from Karate Kid 3 in a battle for control of the dojos in the valley. It's such an insane concept, but it lends itself to what we said earlier, that everything feels like so natural that I don't think the karate. I don't want to say never gets too serious, because it ends up with them literally using like katana swords, getting sliced up the back. And I thought he died, if I'm going to be honest. I didn't think he'd survive this. I thought, oh my god, Cobra Kai is going to like have had a man killed now. They've had school people paralyzed and karate banned from schools. We've had valleys taken over, and now we're going to have people murdered. Like, it's this insane rise, but obviously they do keep him alive. And I kind of want to jump to you to ask you, like, again, I hate these. It's always shows like Game of Thrones that has this, where people like, oh, it's so wrong for X, Y, and Z survives. They should all die. I don't think it's appropriate for a show like Cobra Kai. I'm going to ask you, like, do you think Chosen should have died, or do you feel it was a bit of a cop-out?
I don't think he should have died. I mean, not every show has to have characters that die. Cobra Kai is one of those shows. Because especially if you've spent this whole season building them up, if he dies, you don't get to see that ultimate payoff. Because like, especially before that, he had that really touching moment where he was on the phone to Kimiko. Was it Kimiko? And like, he's just like, he had that chat with Johnny in the bar before that, like, you should go after her, and then he does, and he's really awkward on the phone, like he's trying to say, I do like you, I want to see you, and all that sort of stuff. To have him die after that, you wouldn't get that ultimate payoff from that bit. So I don't think it's a cop out that he died at all. I mean, it was just a flesh wound, but But yeah, I don't think he should have died at all.
It kind of reminds me of Die Another Day. Like you get the sword fight halfway through the film of like Brosnan and Toby Stevens just fighting each other. And it gets extreme. It gets over the top. But again, it works with Cobra Kai. And I think I'm the same. I think I loved the fight against Terry Silver. I do like the fact Terry Silver won that fight. I think it makes it a lot better for his, because if he is meant to be, in theory, the guy that's better than Kreese, the guy that's better than all of them, the ultimate villain. I think it does make sense that he could beat someone that Daniel, because it's Mr. Miyagi that defeats them in Karate Kid 3. It's not the Russo. And I think that's what works in its favor. That jumping back to Terry Silver, even the scenes earlier when like Terry Silver like annihilates him throughout the year, like there's some pretty hard hitting moments, and I just think everything they've done story wise has worked in their benefit. And a lot of people joke about how over the top the series has got. Daniel's family, his wife is literally now playing the story point where she's like, why is this karate stuff so involved? Why is this such a big thing? And it's because it's they're in the know on it now. Like I think the writers know, yes, this is over the top, but we love it still, and that's why it's going to continue.
Yeah.
And I actually want to, if we move to LaRusso, talking about him actually for a short amount of time. How do you feel with his arc? He's got a weird one in this, that the creator's got so in front of his life that he's going to lose his family. She takes the kids, which I thought was very weird given they're both in on the karate stuff now. But what completely caught me off guard was Robin Lively that came back to play Jessica, who was in the
third
ones.
one.
And I'm going to be really blunt. I didn't realize this was her until they actually started showing the flashbacks.
Oh, I didn't realize either.
Yeah, good. It's not just me. I was sort of there, like, hold on, like, why is this not Sam's friend, the mum's friend? And obviously, it made sense that she introduced Daniel to her eventually, which I actually think is a really, really neat little moment. It gives them a bit more of a background. Yes, it's cheesy, but for me, it's something that just works in its own right. And I don't know. How do you feel? Like, do you think that works for you? Like, having her back in? It's a weird one because, again, she's got such a not minor role in 3. Like, she's the love interest in the 3rd film. So it feels weird. Like, she introduced like her friend to play the person it's Amanda, sorry, the mother.
Amanda,
It's so strange that it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to introduce you to my ex that you're going to marry and have kids with. I'm not going to read into it too much because it's just part of the show. But I did quite like it, although it was a bit the cheesy bar fight. I think was a bit CW for my liking.
It was weird because when they initially showed it and like they like held the shot on her face for a second, I was like, it took me off guard a little bit because I was like, why are they focusing on this woman? Like, it's been a couple of seconds where we've had just a shoot of her face. I was like, that's weird. And then it gets to the bar, and then Amanda and her talking about, oh yeah, Terry Silver's back and all that sort of stuff. And then it clicked for me because she said, oh, Terry Silver had a really bad. I was like, oh, this is her. And then they went to the flashback. I was like, okay, this all makes sense now. But the fact that they had that cheesy bar fight was a bit weird. I don't know what the point of that was. But yeah, it was one of those. But yeah, Daniel LaRusso as a character, he had a weird arc. Like, it's like him and Johnny sort of flipped roles because Johnny's getting ready to have this baby. He's being really responsible. He does up his flat, baby proofs it and everything. He's got his head screwed on. And then Daniel LaRusso is going around trying to kick Terry Silver's butt, like left, right, and center. It's like he's the one that's like day drinking and sort of like just getting into fights, and he has to come to Johnny for advice. Whereas in previous seasons, if needs be, Daniel would have given advice to Johnny. So it's one of those. It's like really interesting, and like Johnny actually imparts some actual good wisdom and like sort of helps Daniel to get back on track and get his family together again, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting the Daniel stuff because I'm glad you actually mentioned that. I didn't really think that they'd almost like swap roles in this, which I think is actually very, very well said because I think they absolutely do that. Daniel's the one that loses sight of what is. He's so focused on the karate, on his personal life, that he lets things go. He becomes obsessed, breaking into people's houses, pull what houses stuff, returning a stingray as well, which caught me. The reason why he keeps catching me by surprise when he comes back as stingray is because he's become, this one's really like a dick thing, but he's actually become like a very, very successful actor now. Like, take credit aside, he's fine, and like he's been in like Clint Eastwood films, and he's had like awards discussion. He's a very good actor. He's been in Spike Lee films, and for him to keep coming back to Cobra Kai, I actually love it. I know he's not everyone's favorite character. I think he's like Marmite. You either love him or you hate him.
Yeah,
but I think it shows that this series probably has a sort of special place in his heart. Maybe that to keep coming back to it.
Yeah,
I think it shows that he does care, and I think it really does help the series itself. But oh god, I'm trying to think next. I mean, if we'll stick with the dojos, let's talk about some younger casts. So Cobra Kai, we have a really not weird arc. We kind of have Tori's kind of redemption arc. I'm trying to think of the best way to call it, because obviously we saw it in the last series. The referee took the bribe, and she saw that, and obviously her conscience is playing throughout. Obviously, we've got the other Cobra Kai kids. We've got Kenny Payne, which is to me still one of the greatest ever names for a character. I literally feel that's a Mortal Kombat name. He's literally called Kenny Payne. And all this, I'm just gonna say it, like, I'm a bit not tired of the kid stuff because that's the core of the story still, but when you've got this much more interesting series now happening with the adults, the kid stuff's not as big for me. And I think with Paint and stuff, I liked the fact that we got to see her sort of befriend Sam to a point. Like, their aggro with one of her seems to tone down, and when she takes on the mentorship for Devon as well, who is a weird one, that she was going to become a Cobra Kai, because inherently that she was never actually a bad person. How do you feel with that sort of stuff? Because I'm just saying, bar Kenny Payne, I didn't care for any arc with any of the kids, and I actually think bar Miguel and Robbie, everyone else was wasted except Kenny Payne.
I don't know. I enjoyed it. The Devon bit was a bit weird because she was training at Topanga Karate, which is a really weird name. I'm sure there's another word for that, but having her change to Cobra Kai is a bit weird because she was Eagle Fang in the last season, so you would have thought that she would be tight with Johnny and Daniel and those group of characters, rather than her instantly flipping the script and going to Cobra Kai. I thought it was a bit weird, and with Sam, like being friends with Sam and stuff, Sam trying to get her to get out of, because she and like Sam started to realize this is not a good place to be. This is not a good dojo to train at. You need to leave. And she couldn't exactly say it to her face because of Terry Silver and Terry Silver's followers basically being on her case so much. She couldn't outright say it, so she was trying to push her out by being mean, and then sort of pushing her out so that she can get out of this toxic environment before she's in too deep. But the characters, like the kids' characters, I really enjoyed them. It didn't take anything away from the season, but it didn't, as you said, I did love the adult stuff more. But the kids were a really interesting dynamic because there was that sort of disconnect this season, like towards the end when Robbie and Miguel and all the kids found out that that Sam was working with John Kreese, and then I thought they would have had that crossover where Daniel and Johnny would have told Miguel and Robbie that we are working with John Kreese as well, like, because that didn't really happen.
Yeah, the Kreese things are a bit weird. We'll get to them later because some of it, certainly the stuff with Peyton, I think works really well. That because she always trusted him, never anyone else, which I actually really like about their relationship. But a few of the other ones, it just felt a bit weird, a bit short. If I'm going to make sense of it, but with the kids, like even people like Hawk don't I mean, I don't think Hawk really had an awful lot to do last season. I think he's slowly not dipped, but we're seeing less of him now. And I think, maybe his key arc of him being the original, he's become the bully type thing, that's happening more and more. But I think, as you sort of said as well, the adults do have more of that attention. I think it's got a bit more adult, the storyline, could we say?
Yeah.
Obviously, when one season ends with the kids in lead roles and the adults in supporting, now it's like reverted that the adults are the lead roles again and the kids are the supporting roles. Even like Sam, who I'm just going to say it, is a character that I've never really cared for across the entire series. I think a lot of people are the same. Flicking in out of romances. Again, I get it. There's going to be an audience. There's going to be people that enjoy it. I don't have anything against the actress. I don't think she plays the role bad. I just think it's a character that isn't written as well as a lot of the others in the same show, especially when it's like everything's always about like romantic issues. I think it's very easy to drop off that. But if we're going to sort of, I'm trying to think, is there anyone else from Cobra Kai before we move on to the next story? Spoke about Miyagi, spoke about Cobra Kai, the kids, the lessons. I reckon we should move on to the next story point. So we'll sort of do a final call back later on. But if we move over to the Mexico storyline, so we've obviously the series begins with Johnny Lawrence with Robbie going after Miguel in Mexico. So me and Tate kind of hinted this in the spoiler-free review. This is a very weird story arc.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it. The Australians are probably the worst thing I've seen in this all 5 series. The stealing the map, the rucksack again. I know this is shooting in LA. I know this isn't shooting on location. I don't need this to shoot on location. It's fine. You can pretend it's Mexico. But to have a whole stealing tourists' money subplot, I think is so stupid. And it just made it look really not cheap. It just made it look a bit crap. And at times I did think, why am I watching this? However, for Miguel's story of him searching for his dad, and his dad, obviously, Carmen always saying, his dad's not a good person. I didn't mind it as much. What I would probably say is that I'm happy they didn't drag it out over 10 episodes. I'm happy it was like 2 or 3 episodes. Now we're back. Let's get on with it. It's not worked out because some of it I hated, some things I liked. I was just a bit zoned out. I don't know. How do you feel with it all?
It was weird. I think with that, like, they had to do it because I think the writers put themselves in the corner at the end of season 4 because they couldn't do Diaz and Robbie in the final again. So they had to have a way for Diaz to leave so that that wouldn't happen, and they put themselves in a corner. So they had to have that payoff. It was odd. I mean, maybe if they do something with it later, I wouldn't mind it. Maybe that Salazar realizes that Diaz was his son. He's got a son, and that sort of thing. Maybe he comes back later, possibly. But it was weird. It is what it is. It's a good, as you said, it's a good thing they didn't drag it out over 10 episodes because that would have been, I would have been out, to be honest.
And I think as well with this, I guess what it ultimately does is when we get the big story twist that Carmen's pregnant and Johnny Lawrence is the father, I guess it's almost saying up like Miguel needs to accept that Johnny Lawrence will be his dad. I think it's pushing towards that. Like he's like, yes, he'll be your stepdad, but it seemed like it was agreeing with something else because I'm just going to say the whole UFC cage fight stuff was so strange. I know you're into UFC, but like having 2 people doing karate, to cage fighters. I know it can much disbelief. It's a show. It's for young adults. Fine. It's not meant to be tough and important, but there are some things that were just very over the top. And those 2 wearing FBI shirts and the dad getting scared, and it's literally says female body inspectors. Like there are little things that I wonder if on paper it was funny, but when it came to the actual like series, like if this bloke's a drug lord, he would know that a 14-year-old would not be part of the FBI going for him alongside a second 14-year-old. And I don't know.
Yeah, just touching on those shirts, like that was weird because when they bought them, it was established that it has female body inspector on the back and it has FBI on the front. Okay, that's fine. When Robbie and Johnny get backstage and that guy calls when they
Yeah.
walk past that guy and he calls and it's like the FBI is here. Did you not see the full back piece of that t-shirt and it says female body inspector? And then throughout the whole crowd, like the MMA fighters, all the other characters, all the goons, everything, do you not see female body inspector on the back of that t-shirt to show you they are not FBI? That was, I don't know, I didn't take many gripes with this series, but that was one that was like, what is
Jumped out too
going
much.
on? Yeah, because it's like, what is going on?
Yeah. And this was my thoughts. Again, like, I don't care if he's a drug dealer or a dodgy bloke, but to me, that's when you go so far over the top. And for this series to go over the top, it's great most of the time. But when you're trying to bring in a real thing like a drug kingpin, UFC, underground fight club, potential son, oh, he's dodgy, he doesn't actually care about his wife. Like, it's so telegraphed. I think it's boring very quick, and I think it's credits them that they ditched that. I mean, when it comes back to England, or not England, sorry, America, like it's literally just never mentioned again.
Yeah.
And it's almost like maybe they knew when they were writing it, this isn't working. Let's get out of here, get them home. And I think the one thing I give this storyline that spreads across the series credit is the Miguel and Robbie stuff. There's two sworn enemies, and this is what I love. Like, both of their half brothers going to be born as like the karate chosen one. That to find out that that they're both going to they're going to be sort of related in a weird way, stepbrothers or half brother as well. I really like this stuff because again, this series, yes, it can be a little bit over the top, but I think the characters and the younger ones are mature enough in the series now to be able to put their differences aside.
Yeah.
But what they never lose sight of is how silly it gets. And the karate fight that goes up the stairs onto the barriers, that's very like not Star Wars-esque, like the whole like it's per times that he could have kicked him off the rail. And I love that he has to have a thing, like it is like the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader thing from episode 6. Like he has to stop before turning to the dark side. It's so funny, it's so ridiculous, but I think that's why it works. Yeah. And these two, I think it's worked for them in their storyline that they have this. They're going to move forward. They're going to repair a relationship of kind. And I think it's about time because what's happening with this current series is, you've got to end it with Cobra Kai all but defeated. For Kreese, obviously, we'll get to season 6 later, but for obviously Kreese to probably pick up the pieces and rebuild. But I thought it was interesting that this was a big story point for them to put forward. And I kind of asked, like, do you believe it? Like, do you feel like they've got a good relationship or whatnot?
Yeah, because they alluded that it was a bit icy coming back from Mexico, that they weren't talking. It was quiet. When they had that karate fight going up the stairs, I legit thought Miguel was going to kick Robbie over the railings and something was going to happen. But I think it was really well played. Like, I think it was really well done that Miguel has that flashback to what happened to him, and he doesn't want that because he knows how bad it was. He doesn't want to do that to Robbie, and then they sort of repair their relationship from there. And like they have these little bits of banter back and forth throughout the season. The main one that I remember is when Johnny is talking to Miguel about something serious, and then Robbie comes over and is like, "Oh, is this a little bit of fatherly advice?" And then Johnny gets really defensive, like, "No, it's not like that." And it's like, "No, I'm just joking." Like that sort of stuff. I think they are like, I swear they had like when they were fighting Cobra Kai as well. At some points, there were bits where they were fighting. Yeah, they were fighting together. Stuff like that. It was just really well done. I think they played it well. That they are sort of close friends now.
Yeah, I mean, jumping to the fight. I mean, because we're going to get to Kreese next, but if we sort of merge sort of the two main storylines together, obviously we get the dramatic ending that Cobra got they've got to get the USB with the footage on to prove that Kreese, not Kreese, sorry, that Terry Silver is the villain. They've got to expose it. It's very it's like Rogue One, like steal the Death Star plans. It's so stupid. It's incredible. And it's kind of like, let's take the school fight from season 2. Let's put it in like the high top of the end karate dojo. Let's have adults getting involved as well, which makes it funnier. How do you feel with that fight? Because if I'm, I think so many Cobra Kai fights have always been by the school. It's like a couple of small locations, a few people fighting here and there. It was like some like the weird Lord of the Rings, like, when all the shots come together, everyone running at each other. It was so strange, but I actually think it was incredible in its own right that every character got their time shown. Although I'll say this, I don't care the character's name. I've never cared for him in the other seasons. The guy that betrayed
that was
Miyagi,
weird.
that was I'm just going to say it. I've never cared about like the geeks and the nerds side characters because they were sort of just a running joke in early seasons that they were the nerds that were looking cool for a day or two. In this, I just think the betrayal was just like boring. Like, it was trying to be a bigger moment than what it actually was, and I think that completely to unzip the top with the Cobra Kai t-shirt. That's I think story-wise that just didn't work. But again, if they're looking for an excuse to have them fight in the karate dojo, then yeah, take it, because I actually loved the fight. I loved the weird sequences, people 2-on-1s, vicious stuff, people getting battered, knocked out. Again, Hawk got something to do at least with the computer when he was kicking them, and he got a few moments. We get the bully that gets battered every season, as he always does. Actually, I'll tell you what it reminds me of the ending of The Dark Knight Rises. Like, when all the police start randomly fighting Bane's lot. And it's like low key. Like, why are they sort of fighting in this weird way? And I feel that's how I am with this. But how was that final fight? And also, like, how did that arc, ending with Terry Silver being captured, the recording of him admitting he took the money? How was all that for you? Did that work for where his character was going?
I think it worked. The fight really worked. I like the sort of technical aspect, like, because you gave the geeks something to do, where they hack into the server and all that sort of stuff. I think they alluded to that character turning over to Cobra Kai earlier in the season.
Yeah,
because he was at one of the
doesn't he?
Yeah, and that sort of stuff. But it was really really weird and out of place that he just unzipped his top and was like, I'm Cobra Kai. It's like, okay, mate, that's okay. You could have done that in a sort of different way, because Terry Silver knew the kids were there, so you could have got you could have got in touch with the kids saying, oh yeah, the kids are at Miyagi-Do are at Cobra Kai, you need to get in and stop them, whatever. Don't have it as just a random character. Like, it wasn't a random character because he's sort of recurring, but unzipping his hoodie and saying, oh yeah, I'm Cobra Kai. But the fight was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like with Devon and Sam. Devon and Sam, was it?
Yeah, and then
Tori.
Then Torres get involved as well, doesn't it? It's like de-escalate.
Yeah, and that sort of stuff, and Robbie and Miguel fighting together, Eli, and I can never remember the character's name. The one that's doing all the techie stuff.
I always forget his name. Is it Dimitri?
Dimitri, yeah. Eli and Dimitri having that fight, and like Dimitri kicking that bully's ass, and like just fully feeling that he's actually kicked his ass. Is really enjoyable. I really like that for Dimitri. Like, he had stuff to do that wasn't just karate. He had techie stuff to do, which I didn't mind it. And then at the end, when they have the egg or the tablet, they played off protect the egg and that sort of stuff, and they're fighting each other, fighting off and stuff like that. But the video itself was really weird, because I had a thought after I finished watching it. Terry Silver in Karate Kid 3 was known to be a bad person. He was disgraced because he was dumping toxic waste into stuff, calling, and it's what do people just not remember this? When he's at that charity auction, I know I'm jumping into different bits, but
no, it's fine.
When he's that benefactor for that charity, do these people not remember that he was a bad person? He was basically a criminal. Like, what there seems to be the disconnect. I know that I'm looking too deep into it, but it's like
No,
really
no,
weird.
no,
Like,
it's
you could have
fine.
chosen any other video, like show him being a bad person, not like, oh no, he paid off a judge for a Karate Kid tournament in a valley. Like, oh
And that's something. Actually, you've just brought up something I hated. The fight to prove themselves in front of the other judge. Listen,
mm,
and again, I don't want to bring real life sport into this. I'm so bored of corrupt referees. Yes, I saw this the weekend that Arsenal lost to Man United. But we know the ref is corrupt. That whole scene was quite not embarrassing, but there is no way. And again, I don't want to pick point and all that sort of stuff, but
mm,
this is a professional, like, this is the Worldwide Karate Tournament. And
yeah,
all these idiots, also they're behind the referee's line of vision, so they can't actually see the karate, which annoyed me in the first place. But for them that wouldn't be able to blatantly see what was going on, it's like, oh, we have a nice local referee here. And it's like Man
and
United,
they made
with
the
the
point of
Salford-born
saying,
ref.
yeah, they made the point of them saying he's impartial. And then he keeps
Yeah,
looking at Terry Silver. The fact that he keeps looking at Terry Silver is really weird. Like, that's so out of place. Like, would
it
these judges not think, why does he keep looking at Terry Silver and being weird with the point system? It's all odd.
it felt too obvious to me. That moment just felt slightly too obvious. I just looked at that for the first time and thought, you know what, this is verging on, like, this is like, again, this isn't a kid show. This is like a young. If you're really nailing down the series, it's a young adult series.
Mm,
So I'm always very more chilled with stuff like that. But that got to the point of, like, this isn't for 6-year-olds. Like, the demographic is older than, oh, look, these bad people cheated. Like, yes, they cheated.
mm,
That's the point. We don't need to see this in this episode. At least let
yeah,
them have a couple of karate matches and be ruthless. I love one of the moments, like, Terry Silver shows him how to do a move that can basically, well, it
yeah.
should kill him, because they talk about, like, drawing blood and everything, and everyone that gets it's fine. Like,
Well,
oh, we're
it's just
winded for a couple of
knocking
seconds.
the wind out of him because that's one of his sort of principles. Like, if they can't breathe, they can't fight. So, because
Yeah,
basically the place that you hit them is the solar plexus. If you hit someone in the solar plexus, you're gonna like get them down for a while. It's gonna knock the wind out, and I mean, I've been hitting the solar plexus before in like Thai boxing and boxing. Like, it does hurt. It can like drop you for a while. So it makes sense. But the fact that they said it's basically a 1 inch punch, essentially.
yeah. And I liked it. I thought that's like, okay, here's the villainous Cobra Kai stuff.
Mm,
Even that instructor, when they have Tori punching the
the
bloodied
stone.
hand.
Yeah.
I was like, this is getting a bit dark. And I was like, I like this. Like, this is, yes, it's over, but this is the really dark shit I live for. And
Mm,
when they actually start comparing it to what Daniel had to go through, I loved, loved,
yeah.
loved that. I think that was a really great way to call it back to
Mm,
Karate Kid 3. And again, whenever they want to throw a flashback in, I don't think, this is full credit to the series, they've ever got a flashback right. I don't think they've ever put a
mm,
flashback on the screen and it's not been appropriate. I don't think there's ever been one that's too long, one that's too short. They seem to just
mm,
nail the archive footage, and the way in which they edit the archive footage as well, I think, just there's a bit of class with it that you don't border too long. It's a couple of frames,
yeah.
a couple of seconds, and it's always impactful to the story. And again, like what they were putting Tori through, I absolutely loved. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy the new character, the overseat. Again, it felt very childish. Like, here's all the dodgy new karate instructors, and it's like, what stereotypes do we have? We've got the black guy with the beard that's tough. We've got a random bloke with a fucking eye patch. We've got the Asian one coming in. Like, it felt very weird that they'd gone for like stereotype expresses. Like, I know these are villains, and this is a
Mm,
very cartoonish show in its own right. But at some point, I was like, this is a bit on the nose now, and kind of staying with that. Something we've not spoke about Mike Barnes returning.
yeah.
How do you feel with his return? I'm actually going to say this. I was worried because Mike Barnes has such a small role to play in Karate Kid
Mm,
3. I mean, not a small role per se, but obviously he's like, he's
a side
used as
villain.
bait for a pun.
Yeah.
Although technically, and obviously, I love that they brought the contract into it, that he owns half
Mm,
of Cobra Kai. I love, love, love that. But the big thing for me was that this is a bloke that he's moved on, unlike the
mm,
others. He's got a successful company. His life's in ruins. Terry Silver's burned it down. Great. I can live for that sort of stuff. And when he comes back into it, it's because he's clearly on drugs and depressed. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
I love that. But he didn't like dust out a karate costume and say, I'm going to reconvert my life to karate. It's like he's dragged into a weird situation. I actually think this was the best way to deal with Mike Barnes. And I don't think he'll be around in future seasons. But it's jumping forwards to how does Karate Kid, want to bring in people? And I just love this idea that I was younger, I've moved on in my life, I'm successful now. How do you feel with him coming back?
When I first heard that he was coming back, I was like, okay, how are they going to rope John Barnes back into this? Is Terry Silver going to call upon him again, and we're going to get John Barnes and all his goons again, or how are they going to do it? But I think they did it really well, because they showed that he's moved on. He's like not practicing karate anymore, even though he was really slick for like if he's not practiced karate in a while. Like it was really weird. But the fact like they brought him back in just at opportune moments, and it was Daniel's fault that he got back into it. He lost his business because Daniel was there, and the fact that he basically blamed Daniel, but Daniel sort of not talked him down, but sort of converted him to see his side and why he brought him back into it. I imagine that they would have done a little bit more with him, like maybe at the end, Daniel sort of saying, "I'm sorry about the business. This is money for that," or because Daniel still is. I mean, they mentioned LaRusso. Yeah, he's a successful businessman. Like Daniel, buys Stingray a PS4 for breaking that. Could you not do something for John Barnes? Because it is primarily your fault. His business burnt down. He lost his family, or he alludes to that, stuff like that. It's like, come on, you got to do something for him.
Yeah, and it's interesting with him because the actor that plays him, Sean Caney. I know he's been on the convention circuit. I know when people have met him, he'd sort of always hinted, can't say anything really about Cobra Kai. I'd love to be in it. It's big. I think this was the name everyone knew would come back in the same way that when season 3 ended, everyone knew, okay, Terry Silver was going to be next. I think when season 4 ended, everyone knew that, okay, Mike Barnes will come back into it now. And he did. And I'm just glad it wasn't this, oh, look, he's still a karate instructor 20 years later, that when they bring these people into it, they're at a different point in their lives, which I think it works for this. And also I love the fact that he just gets knocked out in the final fight, like he's irrelevant to it, and then ends up sort of saving their life in a weird way. But yeah, let's talk Kreese. So we spoke about other storylines, and that sounds a bit sudden. We haven't really spoken much about Kreese, and this would kind of lead into a season 6 potential setup / hype. I loved his story arc in prison. I know we don't get a lot of him. I was very cryptic in the spoiler-free review. I didn't want to tell anyone we get a lot of him or we get a little of him. I actually think we have the perfect amount of time with him. That maybe if you were averaging it out, he's probably only got about 20, 25 minutes of screen time across 10 episodes, maybe less than that. But he never overstays his welcome, as he never does. I mean, he's such a... Considering he was the ending of season 1, isn't it? He's teased and brought into it. For Martin Cove to sort of come on, become this incredible antagonist across a few years, almost be not the life and soul of the series, but just be this incredible threat. I love how they've handled him, but I really enjoyed seeing, because those early, I think it was season 2, when they follow him and he's living in an old person's home and he was really depressed, and we could see as viewers that karate was his life, that Cobra Kai was his life, and that's why he has to return. I love that he just he ends up not just breaking out of prison, but he's I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know how the prison system works. Is it alphas, would you say, for each it's you've got the head of the pack and the inmates, and when he was sort of killed but not killed at episode 10, I was like, what the fuck's going on? It didn't take me long to realize, okay, this is obviously set up for him to break out. We've had enough hints about him breaking out, but I honestly thought, shit, they've all turned on Kreese. We're going to get some really depressing hospital storyline, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I just think it was I mean, even the fight scene, like Martin Cope's a tough son of a bitch, but he probably couldn't do a full karate fight. When we're getting the younger versions of himself and his enemies from when he was young, I think it's a lovely, lovely, lovely set piece. But
Yeah.
I just think it shows how important he is that every time he comes on screen in the show, like it's important that we're not just seeing because he's an old man. And also the fact that Johnny and Daniel use him for information and then still tell him to like F off, I think is incredible. I think he's such a wonderful thing for the series, and it's just amazing to see him at the sort of forefront of it. Like, yeah, he's in prison, but he gets his own prison storyline because he's a fucking like tough son of a bitch, and he is Cobra Kai. To me, he's the definition of what Cobra Kai is, and it strives to be. And how do you think with him this is like? Do you think we got too much of him or too little? I'm quite excited.
No, I think I'm with you. I think we got the perfect amount because he had that. Even in when he's in jail, he has different stuff going on. Like he has a storyline with Tori, and like because Tori essentially looks up to him as a father figure because she doesn't have that, so she goes to him for advice, and then she gets pissed off because he's going along with his plan and he's explaining it to Tori, and then like he sort of veers off and goes off on his own, and like abandons that plan, and then Tori gets pissed off. And then like yeah, you have him being the sort of like beaten up and becoming the top dog essentially. And then like everybody else from then on refers to him as Sensei, which is great. I love that. The fact that he wants to be called Sensei. Yeah. And like when he's talking to the therapist as well, like you see him actually making sort of improvements character wise because you have him like dealing with all these ghosts from his past, like Johnny, like his old girlfriend that died, Terry Silver, his old captain, all this sort of stuff. He's dealing with all of that, which is really well done. And I mean, I did feel a little bit bad for him because Johnny was basically his son, and for Johnny to turn around like when they're meeting in prison, saying, "I will make sure your legacy will not live on." I think that made him turn a corner and say, well, I fucked it here, basically. But yeah, when he got shanked, like it was really weird because when he got stabbed and he was like lying dying, the guy that stabs him was like basically his like second in command. And there's a shot of him when he's running away. There's a smile on his face. I thought that was like a hint to him either that being Kreese's plan, or the fact that he hated Kreese so much that he is now rid of him and he is top dog again. But I couldn't really predict it at that point. But yeah, him breaking out with like the Jello and like when the doctor tastes it and it's like this is Jello, like, and then him breaking out because he like when he had that moment with the therapist and like swiped a key card, stuff like that. It was really well done. It's over the top because like he's just casually walking out. It's like scenes in like the Joker would, just like walking out of Arkham. He's basically doing that. He's like disguised as a doctor, walking out, and he's now free and off to do his own thing.
Yeah. And I think what I sort of loved is that they do build up the, oh my god, Kreese was actually innocent, and they're like, whoa, like he's already got out, like he's escaped, he's on the run, which I think is incredible in its own right, and it's almost like the sort of villain walks away from fire type thing, like the way it ends. You mentioned like Joker and Arkham, it actually is a lot like that in theory, and kind of moving into season 6, like what do you think is going to happen? Because the other thing with Kreese, and again I don't want to ground it in reality too much because it's pretty boring, like Cobra Kai is so past reality, it's literally a karate show that's about to take over the world. He's literally like an escaped convict. Like, can you have him running Cobra Kai? Like he's escaped prison, would that work? I'm really not concerned, but I trust the writers to do the correct thing with Kreese's storyline. And at the same time, if Kreese is going to operate from the shadows, I know we spoke before we went live about what might happen. I think that could work better to have this, because if I'm going to say it as well, actually, season 6 talk, I really can't see this going on past the 6th season now, if I'm being honest. I think season, I always said, it ended the All Valley. Obviously, it didn't. We got this series. I think the series handled it great. But I think we're now doing a world tournament. I don't think you can get past a world tournament for karate. Does that sound
Yeah,
fair?
yeah, I understand. Yeah, season 6. So if they were going to do one, I don't think you can't have Kreese running Cobra Kai because that's just wild. Because he is still an escaped convict to this point. Maybe they do something where he gets arrested and sort of pardoned because he was falsely imprisoned or something like that. Um, I think the person that will take over Cobra Kai is, I can't remember her name, but it's the woman that Terry Silver flies over, and like all her goons just running Cobra Kai. Um, I think what they could do if they wanted to stretch it out to like a 6th and 7th season is have a bit more build up of the tournament in season 6. So because obviously you've now lost students from Cobra Kai. The main players for Cobra Kai aren't there, like Kenny Payne, Tori, Devon, what's his name, Kylo, whatever. Like they all become disillusioned. So how are you gonna have Cobra Kai being represented at this global tournament? So what you could do is you could have a season 6 where they bring in more people for more students, build them up, maybe fly some kids over um, from because the woman, I keep forgetting her name, but she says you wouldn't last a week in my dojang or whatever. So maybe have some of her
Yeah.
students fly over, train in the Cobra Kai, become established Cobra Kai sort of characters, students, and then have the tournament as its whole season. Because if it's going to be global, like you can't just have like they've done with the All Valley, just like have one episode or 2 episodes. Maybe put that into a whole season, um, if you want to push it to that far. But yeah, you can't have anything after the tournament. I don't think.
No, I'm with you on that, and I think sort of following up with that because it is a new global tournament, as you said, do it over multiple episodes. One of the great things about the All Valley was it 2 episodes of season 4 that took up. Was it the final 2? Was the entire
Yeah,
tournament?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I remember when we watched it, like we did it all in one, and yeah, like we knew it was kind of okay. We'll take tactical breaks here and there, and for
Mm,
season 6, I think it would certainly help if there was something similar, because it does work in its favor with that binge format. And with this season, again, without comparing it unfairly to the others, because it's very different story wise, this season's like almost not set up for the next one. But if they're like, boom, here's a new tournament, we're going to be able to jump in. About okay, yeah, we know about this in the same way that the All Valley was for the last series. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. Again, I trust the writers, the showrunners. I
Mm.
don't know what characters will come back, if any at all. Will we get some new familiar faces? Um, I I honestly I'm not sure. Wouldn't it be weird if Jaden Smith just turned up and he's learnt a new karate? I'm joking.
Oh, the Kung Fu kid.
Jaden Smith spends his
Yeah.
time talking to sophisticated people about politics, doesn't he? That's
Mm.
what at the age of 10, apparently. But yeah, I don't really have too much to say more on the story. Now we spoke a lot. I just want to kind of put it on the spot. Favorite scene or moment from season 5?
Chosen. Just there.
Any scene you seen?
Yeah. Apart from that, I mean, there were things that I thought it was going to take twists in, like when Diaz is pregnant. The mother, obviously, not Miguel. When they see, because I thought it was going to take darker twists, but then I realized it's a Netflix show. Because like when there's when they establish that she's pregnant, and then they see Terry Silver in the lift. I thought they were going to take a dark turn and have
Yeah,
Johnny and
something
Terry,
horrid happened.
yeah, like Johnny and Terry start fighting in the elevator, and then Diaz gets knocked and she like loses a baby or something. Like I know it's really dark, but I thought that's what
No,
was
no,
going to happen.
I'm in the same vein that when that's when they got in the elevator, I was like, shit, it's like this could get very dark.
Mm,
I'm glad it didn't because I think if
yeah,
they'd have crossed that limit, there's no return. But at the same time, like there was so much tension. I guess that's a credit to the series, right?
mm,
That Terry Silver gets in a lift and you are instantly scared for everybody in it.
Yeah.
I think that goes to show what a great job Thomas Ian Griffith's done with the character and what the writers have done. But I'm the kind of same as you, like, there could have been something horrible.
Yeah. But yeah, I
Favorite
mean,
scene? Oh, sorry.
Chosen. Every scene the Chosen is in, I love it.
I loved the egg stuff. I thought
Mm.
just him like hunting for them was great. It
Yeah.
was so, again, like it knows what it's doing. That if you go to Karate Kid 2, you know, he's this incredibly serious psychopathic individual.
Mm.
And what I loved is even little bits in this one, like he's with Johnny, and they're
Mm.
having like a dick measuring contest about what's the most impressive thing Daniel LaRusso did next to you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I watched him like save a girl in a hurricane.
Yeah.
And it's like really funny, and I guess credit goes back to the last series where they brought Chosen back, put him in a Hawaiian shirt, and was like, this guy's gonna be like funny, like we'll
Yeah.
make him serious, and he just he does the honk thing, and
Mm.
it's so great to have him back. And I think I'm the same as you, like he's probably one of the most delightful things in this season. I
Mm.
think they needed the comedy relief through him, that
Yeah.
it just made it a bit easier. And at the same time, when he gets the weapons out and Terry Silver gets the
The
katana blade out,
katana.
like
Yeah.
you know that we're in for some like batshit crazy
Mm.
stuff now. And I think those two coming together is probably like maybe my favorite scene of the series. Just like we
Yeah.
get this insane, and this is how far like Cobra Kai has gone. We've gone from, you know, fighting in a tournament to like a shitty studio next to, you know, like a few like co-ops or something.
Mm.
We're now in like a 5-star mansion, swimming pool,
Yeah.
karate battle to the potential death. It's so great. And
Mm.
it just made me excited for what's next. So if I'm going to give my final thoughts on season 5, is it my favorite series? Probably not. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I love all 5 of these series. I'm just going to make that abundantly
Mm.
clear. I do think season 4 is the strongest one so far. However, that does not take anything away from this series. It delivered upon what season 4 set up. We certainly have, to me, the best villain of the entire Karate Kid series, not just Cobra Kai, in Terry Silver, probably at the top of his game. There's a lot of enjoyment. It's still bingeable. I think, you know, the whole debate of whole weekly releases versus all at once. I think Cobra Kai has always lended itself to the binge format. 10
Yeah.
episodes, 35 minutes each on average. That's easy. That's a day's work. I mean, to be
Mm.
fair, I won't even lie. Like when I was watching these, I think I did the first 7 in one night. It was the bank holiday.
Mm.
And then I did the next 3 the next day, and I just couldn't turn. When I turned off the first time, it was 3 in the morning. I'd work at 8, and I was like, I've got to turn this off, and I was struggling not to. So it is such an interesting series in that respect. And I think what would be great is if there is a season 6, just being able to binge it all in motion is going to be so much fun. I think that's the fun
Mm.
experience of the series, and overall, I think it's pretty great. It's still one of my favorite TV shows airing at the moment. I said we're in a very, very rich time point for TV. You know, when we've got the likes of Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings on weekly at the moment, which
Mm.
is 2 very, very serious shows, 2 great shows for people
Yeah.
to cry about. It's nice to get something that's so far over the top. Yes, fantasy is obviously not realistic, but they take themselves seriously in those shows. And it's nice to
Mm.
get something that just isn't in that vein. You can have fun, you can relax, kick your legs back, you can have a fun time, have a couple of beers, have something to eat. It's the kind of show that really delivers on that sort of social experience. So yeah. And what are your final thoughts?
Yeah. I thought yeah, I agree with you. Season 4 was my favorite, but I think if you watch season 4 and then season 5 back to back, it worked really well. Yeah, I think I prefer season 4 because of the tournament, but I
Yeah.
understand why you couldn't do the tournament in this season because there's so much other stuff going on, and you allude to the you can't do the tournament anymore. Essentially, you can't do the old value. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's points that I think didn't work as well, like the early, like I mean, I watched this with my parents, so me and my dad agreed that the first like 2 or 3 episodes were a bit off because you didn't have much, if any,
Yeah.
karate in it. For a show called Cobra Kai, you didn't have any of that sort of karate fighting. But then then it escalates from there, and then like you end it with a big dojo battle. So yeah, I thought it was really good, and yeah, as you said, it's a good time in TV because you have so many other serious stuff going on, like Rings of Power and House of the Dragons. it's nice to have this sort of comedic thing, because even though you still have She-Hulk, that's not appealing to everyone, which is understandable. So it was nice to have this as like, because I mean, normally what I'll do is I'll watch She-Hulk over the weekend, but because we were doing this review today, I didn't get a chance to watch She-Hulk this weekend. But that was because I had other stuff going on as well. I still need to watch Rings of Power, so that's still something that I need to watch. And then you've got House of Dragons airing in about 4 hours, so I'll probably watch that tomorrow. But to get through that this week, like to get through it this weekend and have nothing else serious to think about, it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I kind of think, I don't want to comment on current events, but this weekend of all the weekends, like I did a double bill at the cinema yesterday. I watched Bodies, see how they've run. That's a very weird double bill. Both murder mysteries, both great in their own right. I do recommend them for everyone to watch at home. Don't know if we'll have reviews out for either. If I'm being honest, there's a lot happening at the moment, so that's why there's nothing else. But there's a lot of serious stuff, and sometimes you just want to kick back and relax. And again, I don't want to comment on current events, what's obviously on the news. Everyone's kind of their own different opinions that they're entitled to as well. But everyone should be able to watch what they want. You shouldn't be taking away anyone's right to cancel events and all that sort of stuff. But again, I won't comment on that further because I'll end up just waffling like an absolute psychopath. So yeah, weird tangent that. But I said, do watch what you want. But you know what I'll say, and we had to say it again on D23 stream yesterday. If you dislike something, fine. You're allowed to dislike stuff. Don't go racially abusing the cast, you pieces of shit. We all know who you are. So I'm just going to leave that one there. And also, we want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts on Cobra Kai season 5. Did they go woke, go broke because they brought in some foreign coaches? I don't know. Comment your tears below and we will happily block you. But as we said, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more of this sort of stuff coming down the line. If there is a season 6, I'm sure there will be. Knowing these guys, they'll be like, by the way, we filmed it back to back. Is actually next month because this dropped like 3 months early. This was meant to be like end of the year. Like their trajectory is always like New Year's Eve type window. I think when we did last year, that was like an amazing weekend back in December. If we're lucky, maybe towards the end of next year, we'll have season 6. Who knows? So more details obviously come. If you enjoyed this video, you're curious about some of our other shows, as I said, we're going to have a big spoiler discussion when House of Dragon and Rings of Power have both finished. We're going to wait for them to finish. There's too many shows to cover. I'm not going to lie. I would love to do each of those weekly, but I literally just don't have the time, and we don't have everyone that can jump on. And again, everyone jumps on in their own spare time. And that's what we really appreciate, especially jumping on Slight Ayman. So thank you for coming on. And as well, for everybody at home, a show we will be covering weekly because we can guarantee we'll always have enough Star Wars people around. Andor starts Wednesday, the 21st of September. Expect spoiler discussions every Wednesday night. Probably episodes 1 to 3 will be a little bit later on in the evening, so everyone can watch the first 3 episodes. But after that, it'll be smooth sailing. There's a lot of things happening on the channel. The best way to find out about these things is following us on our social medias, Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. A link to Redbubble in that description where you can pick up some of our merch. If you're curious about other videos we've got on the channel, we're doing a massive Steven Spielberg retrospective. Munich is going to be out this Tuesday. That was pre-recorded with Elliot from Hakuna Matata, myself and Tate joining him on that one. And I guess it's a lovely little plug that we've had the first trailer today for The Fabelmans, Spielberg's new film, at premiered in Toronto yesterday. There's now posters. It is an Oscar heavyweight. And whenever the hell that comes out in England in January, we'll have a review. Hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll get it far before, because it's unfortunately not at the London Film Festival. But I'm just trying to think what else is coming up. But yeah, that's all I can say about Cobra Kai at this point in time. Maybe other people have some stories elsewhere. I'll be sure to tune in, have a listen to those stories, and I'll certainly let my thoughts be known upon that. So I want to say thank you all for watching at home, and be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.